Mask please, but no mask mandate. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Anna Staver, State House reporter for USA Today Gannett, Ohio Bureau, Mike Gonidakis, Republican strategist, and Sam Gresham of Common Cause Ohio. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. I'm Andy Chow, sitting in for Mike Thompson this week. If you look at the various maps of COVID spread, you see a disturbing trend. Ohio's getting redder and redder. The 21-day average is 6,349 new cases per day and 3,500 people in the hospital currently with COVID-19. COVID is spreading among children. The state has seen sharp increases in COVID cases and COVID hospitalization among kids. Despite the grim stats, Governor Mike DeWine declined to issue a mask mandate for school kids.
If I could put on a statewide mandate, if the health department could do it, we would do it. What the legislature has made very clear is that if we put on a statewide mandate, they will take it off. They have the ability to do that. There is no 30-day waiting period. They can do it right away. And the legislature has made very clear that if we put on a mandate for kids in school to wear masks, that they will take it off. And people say, well, Mike, why don't you do that? You could be on for a couple of days or whatever. And, but the problem with that is we're going to cause, if that happens, we would cause it seems to me, a lot of confusion, and we might go backwards.
So Anna, what's going on here? Does the governor have the ability to issue a mask mandate in schools?
Yeah, he does have the ability to issue it, but he's also right that the legislature has the ability to take it off as quickly as they could get themselves together for a vote. So SB 22 is the bill that created the law, and it gives the legislature the authority to repeal any of his orders immediately. Only states of emergency orders have to wait 30 days. So now, the argument from Democrats is, well, you could take it to court. When the governor vetoed this law, it was overridden. But when he vetoed it, he raised questions about whether it was constitutional. And they think it's worth taking it to court, possibly getting, maybe the judge would let the mask mandate stay while it was being litigated. So they say, look, you could get 30, 60, 90 days of a mandate while it gets worked out by the court.
Sam, is this something you think the governor should take to the court?
Yeah, I think the governor should not hesitate to take it to the court. The sad part about the Republican Party at this point is cannibalizing its own members. The governor's afraid to do it because he thinks they're going to take it away from him. But, the sad part about this, the Republican Party are killing human beings on political ideology, not science. There's nothing scientific about not wearing a mask. They encourage and promote that. This is a sad day, but who can do anything about it?
Mike, we've got several things going on. We have the governor saying that he wants to issue a health order, but can't because the legislature wouldn't do it. Then we've got the court possibly coming into play here. Is this how policy making should be done?
No, we have three co-equal branches of government, Andy, as you know, and the voters of Ohio elected a super veto-proof majority in both the House and Senate of Republicans. They voted and they overrode the veto of the governor, and that's the way we have checks and balances in our country. If there wants to be a change, there's going to be an election in 2022. People can vote otherwise. I suspect that's not going to change, however. Look, at the end of the day, the courts shouldn't be involved with policy making, even whether they're Republican or Democrat. That's what the legislative bodies do, and the executive branch enforces laws. I hate to do a civics lessons here, but that's the way it should be. And Sam, I find that offensive that you say Republicans are killing people, because that's just simply not true. Everyone is promoting the vaccine. That once we shouldn't do a mandate, but if we should encourage. But it's just
totally wrong. They are killing
Sam.
people, and the Republican Party only has a majority because it's gerrymandered the districts. Don't give me that poppycock about having a majority. Yeah, look at the line. Snake on the lake. All that crazy stuff.
Well, okay. All right, everybody.
Get your stuff together, Mike.
We'll get back to we'll talk about districts later. But Anna, what is the vibe at the State House right now when it comes to legislating? Do you believe that if a mask mandate were issued, that the legislature would get rid of it?
Yeah, I think so. There's also two bills in the legislature that haven't really moved on hearings, but are supposed to move this fall that would eliminate, basically ban mandates. So it would remove local districts' ability to mandate masks in school. Senator Andrew Brenner, who chairs the Senate Education Committee, has one, and I believe there's one in the House. So not only do they not want a statewide mandate, they want to limit the ability of districts to issue their own mandates. So it's, I think, if anything, the Republicans that control both the House and Senate have pretty strong opinions about the idea of mandating masks, and they are not with the governor on this one.
So, Mike, we are seeing a surge in COVID cases. We are seeing a surge in hospitalizations where ICUs are saying that they're running out of capacity. Is there something that the party, that politicians, elected officials should be doing to try to stem this tide that's happening right now?
No, there's not a government solution for every issue. COVID's here to stay, and it's going to stay here. We know people that have been vaccinated are still getting COVID, not once, but twice. So there isn't a government solution to everything that ails us. Government can help, but it's not going to fix everything, Andy. Look, 19 months ago, governors across the country started locking down our states and kicking kids out of school. Fast forward to today, we're in the exact same position we were 19 months ago. These things aren't working, but yet we are somehow bowing at the altar saying, well, if we do this, it'll certainly stop COVID. It's not going to stop COVID. It's here to stay.
Sam, we did. Go ahead, Sam.
Can I respond to that? That's poppycock, and you know it. There
Stop
are
it.
things they could do that science says they should be doing. Masks is one, vaccinations is another, and districting. Government should be doing for people what they can't do for themselves, and to provide leadership and decision making in emergencies. Your party's not doing that. In fact, I'll repeat, they are killing human beings over a political ideology.
Mike, you want to respond to that?
Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, it's simply offensive, Sam, and it's the reason why your party's in the minority, and it's going to remain in the minority because instead of offering solutions, you're throwing bombs. At the end of the day, the people should get vaccinated, but we shouldn't mandate or force someone to get vaccinated. The reason why hospitals are struggling as well, which no one talks about, is because nurses and doctors are quitting. Our heroes, who we put on a pedestal last year, are now losing their jobs because there's some hesitancy. Some people don't want to get the vaccine. Maybe they have natural immunity. Maybe they have other health issues, but they're being demonized for not getting it. That's something.
Let me correct you again. I am not a Democrat, and don't forget that.
All right.
I'm an independent.
All right, well, let's move on to our second topic. The Ohio Redistricting Commission adopted new state, House, and Senate legislative district maps that once again secured a supermajority for Republicans. The commission voted a minute over the deadline, but reform-minded activists say that the final maps completely missed the boat. Sam, you were there. We were both there watching the commission hold its meetings. You heard several people give testimony. And we even saw Governor Mike DeWine apologizing before voting yes, saying that the maps fall short of the Constitution. What do you think about what the state lawmakers and then what the statewide elected officials were saying about the maps before they voted yes?
I thought, with the exception of Faber and the Secretary of State, it was poppycock. I thought Senator Sykes and Representative Sykes made a great deal of sense in their comments and statement. I think what we're watching here is the slow death of the Republican Party. And they found several elements to kill themselves with. One is the COVID. The second is the redistricting. We drew up these rules. We struggled for years to get there. And then they totally obliterated. They didn't meet any of the deadlines required. They didn't do any of the things that the law calls for. They ended up with these super districts again. They ended up with a strong majority in the House, a strong majority in the Senate. And the law, constitutional amendment, says no district should favor any political party. Now, the way they drew it, God, they have no respect, no civility, no understanding, and no character or caring for people, for the way they behave.
Mike, in these maps, in the Ohio House, Republican Senate President Matt Huffman said that these maps would basically guarantee 62 seats for the Republicans compared to 37 seats for the Democrats. On the Senate side, 23 seats for Republicans compared to 10 seats for the Democrats. Mike, how is that not gerrymandering?
Well, it's not gerrymandering because the Constitution says so, and that's what the Redistricting Commission said. It's not only is it constitutional what they did, it's compliant with what the voters approved in 2015, which and you guys, I'm sure, all voted for. Look, at the end of the day, we had to do a 10-year map or a 4-year map. We ended up with a 4-year map. It's constitutional. And at the end of the day, if you look at it, regardless of how lines are drawn, candidates matter, issues matter, ideas matter. And when you look at what happens into the Democrat Party over the past 10 years, they've lost 4 seats that were drawn for Democrats. Look, Michael Rulius, a Republican, took a seat in 2018 that was held for 70 years by a Democrat. The lines weren't redrawn. He was just a better candidate than the Democrats. Look, Ohioans are sick and tired of some of the things that are coming out of the Democrats' candidates in this world culture. They're going to the other side. Trump won Ohio by 8 points in 2016 against Hillary and in 2020 against Biden. That's not a coincidence. People are walking away from Democrats and Democrat districts. You can only draw the map so many ways. The court says you cannot. The federal courts have said you cannot draw lines based on race. Segregation, it's unconstitutional, violates the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But what we did was try to make sure that they were compact, kept together. We didn't.
No.
Look,
You obliterated the whole race issue.
Hold on. Let's let Mike finish
We're not talking about all
first.
the Republicans who have lost.
All right, now let's be clear. The Republicans paid no attention to the voting rights aspect of this, and they admitted that. So that's a violation of the law. The second thing you said that doesn't make any extent. No, that's the truth. The partisan leaning in the state of Ohio, 45-55. And 45 to 55 is a 10% district difference between who's in the majority. These districts don't represent a 10% difference. They're overwhelmingly one party. So you have obliterated the lines right away. Your party was disingenuous from the beginning of this whole process. They have no integrity. They have no honesty. They are ruthless. I'll stop.
Andy, we're going to do this.
Hold on. Let's get Anna in this. So Anna, voters in 2015 voted for these reforms. Is this the process that voters wanted to see when they went to the ballot box in 2015?
Probably not, but they also didn't want the data to show up like 6 months late. And I think that's one of the things that gets lost in the fight over how the maps actually look, is that they had less than a month to do this process. So yeah, they missed some deadlines, but everyone sort of assumed they were going to miss the first deadlines because I think they got the data a week and a half before the September 1st deadline. But and that's a really short time. They should have had many more months to discuss these. And the other thing to keep in mind is that the Ohio Constitution has another deadline, which is you have to live in your state house or state Senate seat 1 year before Election Day. So by the evening of November 2nd, you have to be living in your district. And the longer they wait to put out this map, the more challenging that becomes for somebody who has to move. And I also think it could keep a judge from changing the lines too much because if somebody moved, if they made a choice and we get a new map in January, is that unfair to the person who made a decision to run based on the map as it exists today?
Yeah.
I think we're going to run into a real short timeline here since we have a 1-year deadline coming up.
And speaking of deadlines, Anna, let's stay with you. We just saw the state legislative maps drawn. Now we're going to see congressional maps drawn. Do you think that there's going to be any difference to the process to which they were made?
No, it's also because Ohio is losing a seat. So we're going from 16 down to 15. Now we do have a number of incumbents who, Tim Ryan has decided to run for Senate. Anthony Gonzalez has decided not to seek re-election. So I think that gives a little bit of wiggle room into how you draw these new seats. But we're also going to have a lot more players come in. The DCCC, the RNC, like all these national groups are going to be much more interested in the congressional lines.
All right, Mike and Sam, I want to get back to you very briefly, both of you. Do these maps go to court, and what do you think happens at court? Mike, go first.
Well, the court can't redraw the maps. They can go to court, and the court can say go back and try again. But we're going to keep the things as status quo then until we draw the maps again, which will be same or similar. What's Andy, as you know, because you were on the front lines, there's only about a 7 district difference between the Republicans' plan and the Democrats' plan. It's not like there's a huge gulf. If we had more time, look, my friend Matt Huffman, Senate President, said, "Give us 30 more days. Let's go to the voters and ask for 30 more days." Special interest, League of Women Voters said no. All they've been is obstructionists this entire time on that. Okay. So we're stuck with what we have now. The courts will not rewrite the lines.
Sam, does this go to court?
Yes, it does. But there won't be much chance. I'm hoping the court finds a way to articulate its dissatisfaction with the process and the participants in this process. That's all they can do. But now I'm going to tell you, here's the thing that is different. The 1-year residency requirement is important, but between this 4-year term of this map, there will be elections for officers who did not vote appropriately. Those statewide offices are going to be targeted as an illustration of how they did not follow the rules of the Constitution.
All right, so stay tuned. So moving on, we're about 7 months from the state's 2022 primary. Speaking of what Sam just said, with more elections coming up, the fields of candidates remain large, but will narrow as we get closer to the February filing deadline. Now, Governor Mike DeWine will likely face former Congressman Jim Renacci and most likely businessman Joe Blystone in the GOP primary. And that leaves the state Republican Party in a tough spot. Usually the party would get behind its sitting governor with little debate. But so far, party leaders have not endorsed DeWine. Many are upset with how the governor has handled the pandemic and say the party should remain neutral. Let's go to Mike here. Mike, what's the thinking here? Why doesn't the party just automatically endorse the governor?
Well, look, the state central committee is elected by the people in their Senate districts, same as the Democrat Party, and they expect them to represent them in their political parties, such as the Democrat Party. And at the end of the day, there's enough members, it appears, I'm not one of the members that have concerns as it relates to endorsing the governor right now. Ultimately, I believe they will endorse Governor DeWine for re-election. But there's concerns right now, and I think our good chairman, Bob Paduchik, is handling it appropriately by pumping the brakes a little bit. We've got plenty of time to do this. But ultimately, we're going to have a solid ticket, and it's a strong ticket. Heck, the Democrats don't even have a candidate for Secretary of State. The Democrats don't have a candidate for Auditor of State. So Sam's talking about holding people accountable. The Democrat Party doesn't even have candidates to run to go sit on the commission if they could win. So I think we're in a much better spot than the Democrats today.
Anna Staver, it's kind of unusual for a party to not endorse an incumbent governor. What do you think is going to happen in the future here?
I agree. I do think that they will eventually come home and endorse him. But it also and I also question how much like the state endorsement matters in the long run, whether it's really at the central focus of like voters when they decide who they want for governor. I will say anecdotally, I was at my husband's family's from Northeast Ohio, and we were at the Wayne County Fair the other weekend, and I did not see a single Mike DeWine sign, but I saw a lot of Jim Renacci signs, and it was just really interesting, even within the Wayne County GOP booth. So it was really it's interesting to see how the divide is as you go across the state in terms of like which county parties are supporting the governor versus not supporting the governor. If memory serves, I think Claremont County GOP asked the state not to endorse in 2022.
Sam, do you think Democrats see this as a vulnerability in the gubernatorial race?
I think they do. But one aspect of the presentation that Anna just made is they haven't found candidates who are competitive and really have a statewide recognition. But I want to warn my friend Michael. You remember a state called California that was all a right-wing Republican at one time? Look at that state now. Ohio is a red ruby state, and no one else wants to call it anything else. But that will not be forever. It will change. And the demographics in this county, in this state, prove something this time. The increase in population in the state of Ohio primarily came from people of color. What little population increase we had was primarily people of color. Give it time. Stand by, as your president said.
Mike, any thoughts on that?
No, I don't think it's fair to make a general assumption just because you're a person of color, you're going to vote Democrat. They're going to make their own independent decision as a man and as a woman, as a husband and father, as a mother and a woman. So, I'm glad we're seeing more minorities, more people of color in our state. So I think that we have better ideas than the Democrats. And, and I think in 2022 is going to be a great year. Midterm election, popular president right now, he's in the 40 percentile approval rating. It's going to be a great year for Republicans next year.
Anna, the legislature is about to come back into action and go back into session. Is there any talk at the State House of other people, maybe in the legislature, maybe not in the legislature, looking at possibly running in a statewide race?
Well, obviously Allison Russo is in the primary for the 15th right now. If she doesn't win, I think she'll be back again in 2022 in whatever district gets configured. I know Stephanie Quincy, she's term limited. She tried for the 15th. I don't know what that new configuration is going to look like, but we'll obviously have to wait and see if she's still interested. And obviously there's still just a number of lawmakers running for office. Matt Dolan still hasn't made a final decision on U.S. Senate, but he's taking his listening tour across the state, trying to decide what he wants to do there.
All right. Well, Ohio Congressman Anthony Gonzalez this week ceded his seat after just 2 terms, calling former President Donald Trump a, quote, cancer for the country. Gonzalez was among 10 Republicans in the U.S. House to vote for the impeachment of Trump after the January 6th insurrection. He said he would rather walk away than compete against a Trump-backed primary opponent. Mike, Gonzalez was someone who was a conservative voice for Ohio, the sort of candidate once prized by the GOP. Others among the 10 who voted for impeachment are also expected to follow suit. Is this good for the party?
Well, good or bad remains to be seen, because the Republicans hold on to the seat is I think the most important question. Mr. Gonzalez is a friend of mine. I know him. I disagree with his decision to vote for impeachment, of course, but he would have ran strong. I think it would have been a lot closer than people thought at the end of the day. But, a Trump endorsement in Ohio does well. Ask Mike Carey. He took out everyone in the path here in the 15th district in our neighborhood around here. So at the end of the day, the best candidate should win. Mr. Gonzalez said in his speech, though, he cared more about his family and his kids than going through a divisive, primary. So, to each his own.
Sam, what do you think this says about the Ohio Republican Party at this point with Gonzalez stepping down?
I think it reflects what I said at the beginning, a slow death of the Republican Party, not Democratic Party. I think if you look across the country and if you look at the dearth of what the Republican Party stands for, white supremacy, against abortion, I can go on and on what it stands for now. When I grew up, I respected Dirksen, I respected Percy as politicians in Illinois. And if it was not for the Republicans, we wouldn't have passed all the civil rights bill. But it's a different party now. It's not the same party.
Mike.
It's the party where Looney Tunes get elected in the primaries and lose in the general. This is not a sustainable strategy. I'm going to be honest with you, Mike. It's not sustainable. There are too many people in this country who do not believe in what the Republican Party is doing. Now, if you want numbers, the Republican Party has not won a general election for presidency since 2004. Every year, they've lost the popular vote. They've never won it. Now, that is a bad statistical sign. Now, you have to deal with the
United States Constitution.
And when they did win, they didn't win by popular vote.
Sam,
It's in
Sam,
the Constitution. Men and women died to fight for that Constitution. Okay, let's honor and respect it.
Yeah,
Deal
Mike.
with the numbers,
Sam,
Michael.
Mike. Would you like to respond to just overall what Sam has just said?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's all about results. And we have a constitution, we have a system in place that elects our presidents, and it's not by popular vote. It's never been by popular vote. It's not some new phenomenon. It's a typical liberal response. When they don't like the rules, they say it's racist, or this is racist, that's racist. People are sick and tired. When we do see racism now, we're so numb to everyone claiming everything else is racist that we don't address it. We need to stop this demonization, Sam. And you call yourself an independent, that's fine. But whether you're an independent or a Democrat, liberal, stop it. Okay, it's a terrible look for you and the party and your independence.
All right. Well, we got to
respond.
Go ahead, Sam.
You have to let me respond.
Yep,
you
briefly.
are a sad reality for saying that to me about racism. Everything is not about racism, But there
You
are
make it that
things
way.
that are implicit in this country that are a result of racism. Now, you want to smooth that over, but that's not true. If we lived in your world, there are no problems. And white people have all the rights, and people of color don't deserve any rights. Now, I could go home to you, but I'm going to leave you alone.
Well, we got to move on. We got to go to our off-the-record comments. It's time for the final parting shots. Sam, let's end with go ahead.
I believe in the future we will get redistricting that's fair.
Mike?
Yeah, 4 people got shot on Thursday in the city of Columbus. It's not a one-day phenomenon, horrible tragedy. We've had over 150 murders in the city of Columbus this year, and we still have 3.5 months to go, Andy. If this happened in a rich white suburb of Dublin, New Albany, Upper Arlington, the National Guard would be called out. But yet it's happening here in Columbus, and no one's paying attention, let alone our mayor, Andy Ginther.
Anna Staver.
I'm going to take a different tack. I'm loving a podcast called The Dropout. It has returned. It is following the trial of Elizabeth Holmes. She's the Theranos founder who basically created a blood testing system that allegedly never worked, and she swindled arguably billions out of her investors. She's now actually on trial, and I can't help it. I've been following the trial sort of like with rapt attention since it started 2 weeks ago.
Well, for my off-the-record comment, I wanted to send a congratulations to Columbus native Hanif Abdurraqib, whose latest book, A Little Devil in America, Notes in Praise of Black Performance, is a finalist for the National Book Awards in the nonfiction category. Hanif is an amazing writer, an amazing essayist and poet, and you can also hear his podcast, Small Joys, anywhere you listen to podcasts, like Anna listens to podcasts, and you can hear his podcast. It's actually produced by WOSU. So that's it for us here on Columbus on the Record for this week. Please check us out online. We're on Facebook and Twitter. You can connect to all of that on our website, wosu.org. I'm Andy Chow. Have a good week.